Hey everyone, Livy here, back with another video, and what is today? Today is a very, I don't know if this is like a fusion of a few things, maybe. We're going to talk about standout decks, kind of, from this year. Like, what decks do I feel like I use the most, but also kind of impressed me the most? We're also going to talk, this is here because we're also going to discuss Stalker cards I had for 2024. And then we're going to talk a little bit about goals. So like I said, this is kind of a mashup of a bunch of things. Stay tuned. If you, like me, are also eating Christmas cookies, grab a snack, grab a beverage, I don't know. What? Anyways, let's get into it. Let's start with Stalker cards because I always find that funny. Okay, so Stalker cards. I talked about this last year. I have a video about it, like end of year reflection maybe or something like that. I think it's very beneficial to keep track of your Stalker cards because those you'll notice are your biggest themes that you had throughout the year related to tarot, okay? And I had a lot this year. Now, for the purposes of this, you're seeing a tally and all that jazz. I considered Stalker cards tarot cards that I either had occur more than 10 times or 10 or more times within the year, or kept coming up for me during a certain period of time. I mainly looked at like the frequency this year because I feel like I didn't have one necessarily that kept coming up all the time, but I noticed that some of them were following me throughout the months and stuff. So first off, let's start with the majors because as you can see here, I had a few. Interestingly enough, the two lessons of the majors that I had the most when it comes to Stalker cards were the Empress and the Hierophant, but also quickly followed by the World, this Devil, and the Sun, which I found very fascinating. I don't remember having this many majors last year. And I also found it interesting that the Empress and the Hierophant were some of the bigger ones because I felt like until this past year, I mean, yeah, I would get those cards, but they weren't with the frequency in which I had them this year. So I thought that was really interesting. The Devil I also found was interesting because I'm about to go into a Devil year, but that was only 10 times. Same with the Sun. But the World, interestingly, came up 11 times, kept getting that one. Don't know what was up with that because it didn't feel like I was ending cycles. So it was kind of like one of those strange stalkers to have. But the Empress and the Hierophant, I think, were definitely some of the biggest themes I had of the year. Then, when we look into the minor Stalker cards, like, what did I have? What did I not have? Three of Wands was by far the biggest. I kept getting the Three of Wands, which is very interesting to me. Feeling like being set off on a journey. But what was also interesting with the Three of Wands is that sometimes I was getting this card, but it was in a more negative way. And what I mean by that is that it was more to highlight that I shouldn't be doing this. So it was kind of a weird balance between go and don't go, I guess. But some other ones that I had that are no surprise to me because they were kind of stalkers last year too. I had the Eight of Wands a lot, especially more in the beginning of the year, very go, go, go energy. Just like last year, I had the Four of Cups and the Eight of Cups. I guess those are forever stalkers. I don't know. I always get them, it seems. Very contemplative, moody versus feeling like, fuck this, I want to get out. But some interesting ones that kind of got thrown in here this past year in 2024 was the Three of Cups, right? Urging me to go out into the world, hang out with people more, celebrate. And the Six of Cups. The Six of Cups was also a very big stalker card. This card kept coming up a lot. Nostalgia, you know. I feel like that made sense because I was doing a lot of reflecting on who I used to be and kind of getting upset about that. So the Six of Cups made a lot of sense. It was a big stalker card. Some other interesting ones I had were the Ace of Swords and the King of Cups. I don't know what was up with that. Like having to cut through bullshit, but at the same time being very composed about it. Interesting how that worked out. Also, what I found really fascinating here was I got a Page of Swords a lot this year, which I also think I did last year, and this still made sense. This was mostly in relation to work. But so was the Queen of Swords, which I also found really fascinating. That I was being called to channel more energy that reminded me of my sister. I don't know why. Maybe I had to give a lot of harsh truth sometimes. I don't know. It was interesting that the Queen of Swords was coming up a lot for me, though. And then finally, the other two stalkers on this page that I remember, Three of Pentacles, made a lot of sense. I kept getting the Three of Pentacles a lot this year, mainly because I know more than ever at my work, I felt like I had to do a lot of teamwork activities. Not even just teamwork activities, but like a lot of working with other people to make sure that we survived through our work. So that made a lot of sense. And the Six of Pentacles, having to give myself a lot, that one I will have to say kind of annoyed me at times, because I would get the Six of Pentacles and it'd be like, be generous, be giving, give more of yourself. And I would already be so beaten down, so kind of felt like condescending. But sometimes you get those, right? Sometimes tarot is like that. It can be a little condescending. So yeah, stalker cards. I feel like I kind of ran through those more than I did last year. I feel like I showed more of it last year. But I just wanted to mention them in case you guys also had some stalkers. But now we're going to switch into some more of the other things. So give me 1 second to make that switch. Okay. Now, let's talk about goals here. Just a little bit. Tarot-related goals. Because, you know, it's almost 2025. And as you can see from this giant list, or maybe not, I have really messy handwriting. You probably don't notice. And there's some questioning on the side here too. I have very ambitious plans, which I don't know if they will quite pan out. But I have very ambitious plans for tarot and oracle going into next year. And part of this is because I felt like I got a lot of new tarot decks this past year, but I wasn't necessarily working with all of them. So this is kind of my crazy ass solution to that problem. There's even a backside. So what you're looking at here is I have decided that every month I will try to use 5 different tarot decks, like allow myself to move between 5, and I could use 2 oracle decks every month. So January all the way to the back, which is in December. And this is very ambitious of a goal. I don't know how well I'll be able to stick to this, but the main reason why I'm doing it in this way is because I want to use a lot of decks. I feel like, again, they were newer in my collection, so I want to try to use them this coming year. Or they're decks I've had a while, but I feel like I haven't been using much within the past couple of years. So that's the very, very ambitious plan I have here. And this is also just to make sure I'm actually utilizing most of my decks. I noticed this year there were quite a few times where I repeated decks that I wanted to use. Like I kept using certain decks at certain times, which is fine because I grew deeper bonds, and you're going to see, I'm going to talk about a lot of my standouts for this year. But I want to be more intentional and make sure I'm using a lot of these decks that I have, and we'll just see how it goes. So for January, if you can see, you get a sneak peek. I recently had this come in, so I'm going to have Tarot of the Moon Garden, Forager's Daughter, Tarot Mystical Moments, Magical Creatures Tarot, Edmund Duloc, Dream Song Oracle, and Imbolc again, but that's for that. Oh, and it even is going to carry over, by the way, to books. This one is very different. This is just very loosely my idea, is that I want to make sure I'm at least reading 3 books or stuff a month. And so this one is less ambitious because I just want to make sure I read these. If I read more than these, I'm just going to add other books from my TBR, because these are all TBR books, by the way. I'll insert another one in here. Like, I'm more loosey-goosey with these, but I even have reading plans for the next year. So now you know. Very ambitious, very ambitious. But yeah, knowing that I have those goals, at least to make sure I'm using more tarot and oracle that I've had come in, so then I can make those decisions, you know, when it comes to decluttering and all that such. Let's now switch to talking about the decks I feel like were standouts or I used the most, and explaining both of those kind of rationales, I guess. Okay, we're going to start with oracles, because I feel like with these 2 decks that I definitely consider oracles more than another deck. I guess I realized, oh, sorry, there's like noise from outside. You're probably going to hear cars revving up. Anyways, for oracles this year, I feel like these 2 were the biggest standouts, but ones I felt like I used the most in my collection. So the Starseeker Oracle was at the very beginning of the year. I did a little study of this one because it was new to my collection. It was a Kickstarter, I think, that had come in, I think it was very late last year. I don't remember. But let me just show the deck. So Starseeker Oracle is a continuation of the Starseeker Tarot. Has a good guidebook. These are the backs. This is the deck. Has this beautiful matte, kind of metallic edging of purple, like lilac or lavender, probably more lavender-like. Anyways, this deck was definitely a standout at the beginning in terms of oracle. There were a lot of cards in this deck that I kept getting a lot of. I think the artist's digital style came to a lot of fruition in this one. And it's just been a nice deck. I don't know. It was a standout more in the beginning, like I said. I used this, I think, only in January, but I was very impressed with like how it read. The keywords in it feel very, what's the word? They made a lot of sense to me. I don't know. They're pretty exact. Some like grounding made like a lot of sense, but then some of them are like archetypal figures, but some of them, as you can see, are also like cute little cats and stuff. Oh, and then because of the Kickstarter, some of them, these are like extra cards I got thrown in, like it is safe to trust myself. So it's more like an affirmation. This deck's doing a lot of different things. Obviously it pairs really well with, the Starseeker Tarot, but it goes, because of its style, it can go with a lot of things, I feel like. The borders, as you can see, some of the cards are a little, I don't know actually if you can see, they're a little differently colored, like some are more of this beigey color, not beige, but like cream, and then some are like the more lavender. And yeah, I just think this one was a good standout at the beginning of the year. But interestingly, in that way, the Starseeker being the main standout oracle, like most used in the beginning of the year, I had a lot of oracle decks in the middle that I feel like I used only a little bit. Like they were okay, but I didn't use them a lot. You know, I was trying to get a lot more oracles in my collection this past year, but I didn't use them a lot until near the end of the year. It switched to this. This is the Wild Whiskers Spirit Animal Oracle. Oh, I didn't say... This one's by Nikki Ferrata, by the way. The Starseeker Oracle. This is indie. This is also indie. But this is by Faina Laura. has a few decks, a few different decks. Most of them are Oracle. But I also have her in Insecta Obscura and her Lenormand, the Nocturnal Garden Lenormand. But this was the standout. Out of all of them, I feel like this was the biggest standout. This is the Wild Whiskers, like I said. Beautiful backs. And black edging. And this is the fronts. I loved this little oracle. There was something about this that came to me exactly when it needed to. I used this in October, I believe. Yes, October. I had to remember. But this was a big standout because something about this setup worked enough for me. Normally, this kind of thing where I have like a bunch of keywords on top, plus the name, plus a phrase at the bottom would probably normally get in my way. But I think it's because they're written in the sense that they're smaller in comparison to the main image, that for some reason it didn't bother me as much. As you can see, it's an animal style oracle. I love that it has alliterative names. So cute. The animal, it's just beautifully done too, like the florals combined with these animals and even some mythical figures like the dragon. This was such a standout. This one gave me exactly what I needed. I paired this with the Bonbon Oracle, which was also an amazing pairing. Like, those two work extremely well together. Oh, I got this one like a few times. Calm Chameleon. They just worked really, really well together. And I was super impressed. I want to use this again next year. I will be using it again next year. I already know. I put it, I think, back also for October. I just really liked this. And so it was, not only did I use this oracle a lot during its month of use, but it was also a standout of the year. So that's why I wanted to show the oracles first. But now we're going to get into tarot. I will try to do this in order, I think, of when I use them within the year. But anyways, we're going to start with this one. This is the Forger's Daughter Tarot. This is, what is this? This is the Afterlight edition. Comes like this. It also has this giant guidebook, which is outside. It's in the other room, but I'm not going to get that right now. But great guidebook. It's a hardback, separate, big one. Really good. These are the backs. As you can see, just like another deck I'm going to show, this deck is glossy, but it's glossy linen, which I guess is the only exception to glossy cardstock. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because it has like a slight linen texture still that I'm not as bothered by it. Why I normally would be. I hate glossy cardstock normally, but it works for this for some reason. Don't know why. As you can see, this deck is beautiful. It has a lot of extra cards too. So if you're someone who loves extra cards, this is kind of the deck for you. But this was a big standout for me in the beginning of the year. I used this only in January, but it was one of those decks where I kept thinking about the rest of the year. Oh, sorry, there's bugs. A few bugs. If you're not a bug person, sorry. Even the back are cicadas. But I love this deck. I think I don't remember when, but I talked about this in maybe a VR or something. This deck feels a lot like a not necessarily National Geographic, but maybe like a Blue Planet, like nature inspired deck. You know, it feels like one of those where it's talking about the beauty and majesty of the world, but also shows animals in a more extremes sometimes, like how they interact. But I really, really love this one. I already have plans to use this again in January of this coming year, just because I was just majorly impressed by it. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, this deck is pricey. Even when I bought it, it was pretty pricey, but now I think it's even gone up for some reason. I don't know why. It's gone up like by $5 maybe. So this deck now might be 80 USD. So yeah, kind of expensive. But I think did I get this on sale? I don't remember. It is a great one though. It's very beautiful. If you were thinking of getting this deck, definitely keep an eye on the creator's page in case she does a sale. I don't remember. It doesn't say on this box who it is. I don't remember who the creator's name is. But you can get this deck on Etsy. If you really want an animal deck, I do think this is a good one. I do think this would give you a lot of bang for your buck. The guidebook is really fantastic. And so this one impressed me a lot. Like, this was the deck I kept wanting to use, but I didn't use again the rest of the year. And as you can see, because it is linen, it is very easy, though, to shuffle. So, like, this is, like, up there in premium, nice cardstock. It's a glossy linen, and it works so nice. Do recommend this one. So that was The Forger's Daughter. I started out the year strong with tarot, like a good tarot deck that I kept thinking about. It was really good. And here's the thing. Now, I'm going to do this one. This is an oldie. So this, out of all the decks that I'm showing, I think technically, the next deck I'm going to show, or no, I think two of those other ones I'm going to show might be just as old. Or at least I got them last year. But this deck is definitely an oldie now in my collection. This, if you don't know, if you don't recognize this bag, because I've shown this deck a lot, this is the Zerner Farber Tarot. And you might be thinking, how is this a standout? Well, for a couple reasons here, okay? It's not just a standout. This was one of the most used decks, besides one of my other ones I'm going to show later. This is one of the most used decks I used this year. The Zerner Farber, of all things. Can you believe? In this rendition of the Zerner Farber by Schiffer Red Feather, it has this massive guidebook, which I also highly recommend. And the backs are like this, and it has this metallic gold edging. It's a good size. I have small hands, and this deck is basically the size of my hand. It's like kind of small. But this deck, I love this deck. This is, again, nobody should be surprised here if you've been on my channel a while. But I don't know what it was about this year where I wanted to use this deck so much. I don't know why I kept getting called to use it. I started using it again in February, and I just didn't kind of want to stop. I use this deck not even just for myself, by the way. I use this deck also for a lot of other people. I used it for love-related readings, especially even for other people. There was something about this deck, I just kept being called to want to use it. And it's interesting because if you look at, like, if you think about the cardstock, for instance, this cardstock, I'm not going to lie to you, is not the greatest cardstock in the world. It just isn't, but there's something about, I guess it's just the way that it's like cut, where the borders are like this. There's no extra borders on top of these borders. It's just fun, quilted, very artsy-fartsy feeling. I don't know. This just gives me, this is just very much my style. This feels like something. I don't know. But I really wanted to use this deck a lot. You could even see, like, maybe you guys can notice. Actually, I don't know. Oh, yeah. You can kind of tell, right? This deck even is not, like, the greatest in color saturation when they were printing this for some reason. I don't know why some of the cards are colored one way or the other. Again, it's not like it. This is mass market, right? But it's kind of like janky in some of its publication. But at the same time, I just really like this deck. It went amazingly. I discovered like a perfect pair. It goes really great with Coastal Curiosities. So if you have the Coastal Curiosities, whether it's the mini or the first or second edition, I highly recommend putting it with this deck. I don't know. Yeah, I just wanted to use the Zerner Farber a lot. So out of so many, I I use this deck a lot. And yeah, it read really well for other people too. So this is a deck I always want to kind of use for other people. And it's also a deck I realized I want to use for love readings for some reason. A lot of people were asking for those this past year. Just people I knew and stuff. So this deck works for that. I always think about pulling this one when I think about reading for others. So that was a Zerner Farber. Started using in February, ended up pulling it out more again near the end of the year, November-ish time, and just kind of rolled with it. But besides Zerner Farber, in March, starting in March, I started using, how am I going to do this? Maybe I'll show it like this. I started using these decks a lot. More so, I think, these two in March, and then this was more April, but let's go into these and why they're kind of standouts of the year, but also like most use. Tarot of Echoes. I think I got this deck. This is Aniton. This is indie versus Zerner Farber, which is mass market. But Tarot of Echoes, Aniton. I pre-ordered this deck. It says 2023, but I don't remember when the hell I got this. It might have been... did I get it late last year? I don't remember. Because, see, look, this says 2024 in here, but the copyright says 2023. So it might have been that she started her pre-order for this deck in 2023, and then I got it really early in 2024. I don't remember. But Tarot of Echoes, this is beautiful. This is a beautiful deck. These are the backs. Really cool. And these are the fronts. And this was a deck that I wanted to use a lot in March, and I did use a lot in March, right? This was just one of them. It is so beautiful. Her artwork, I cannot believe. The colors she's able to get and just really cool things like this 8 of Cups is so cool. I really, really like this one. This was the first Aniton deck I was able to get a hold of too. I mean, I don't have any others yet, but I've been eyeing Aniton's her Arthurian one that she did, but that one's only in French right now. I'm hoping it's released in English because I don't want to have to always keep translating the guidebook all the time if I want to use it, because I'm obsessed with Arthurian legends and stuff. But Tarot of Echoes as is was really a fascinating deck. I already have plans to use it, I think, again next March. But it was so cool. And I was just obsessed with the colors. Because it's also borderless too and has such amazing colors, this goes good with a lot of oracles I found. So it paired really nicely with some things. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. Tarot of Echoes. But I am still keeping an eye on her Arthurian one. And I also heard that what's it called? Bone Stone and Earth Flesh, her original OG indie run deck, is going to go mass market. Oh, I'm so sorry. I think there's like a plane flying over right now. But anyways, that deck is going to go mass market, so maybe I'll pick that one up too. I don't know. But anyways, that's not what we're talking about. We're going to keep going with decks that I used a lot or were standouts of the year. This, of course, shouldn't surprise anyone either. This is the Lillifer Tarot. I got this for sure last year. Yeah, copyright 2023. Because this is the gold edition. This was Kickstarter backed. It has a little guidebook in there. I don't remember when last year I got it, but I feel like I mostly used it this year as compared to last year. But these are the fun backs. I also like the size of this deck. It's a good, slightly smaller tarot size, but it's a really great size if you have small hands, man. Anyways, I love the Lillifer, and I use this a lot in like that March, April-ish time of year, and it was so good. It was so good. I love it. This is forever going to be one of my faves. And this deck just gave me permission to feel things. I was going through a lot of weird emotions in March and April. And I did a lot of readings with this. I paired this with the Spread Crafters. It claims it's an oracle, but I didn't use it quite in an oracle fashion. The Spread Crafters, in my opinion, the two, because I had both the expansions. Those decks, even though they say they're oracles, I kind of use them more as like spread prompts. Like I use them to start a spread out. So that's why I didn't include them as like standouts of oracles. I guess I could have put them in here anyways. I just don't feel like getting them now. But anyways, this deck goes really good with those. And this deck just let me feel whatever the hell I wanted to feel, right? I love this. I love the colors. And you wouldn't think I would because of all the white background, but in this case, because the watercolor is done so beautifully and has all these vibrant colors in it, I'm not as bothered. I feel like if the images had been smaller and then had more of the white, it probably wouldn't have worked for me. But as is, this deck really works. I highly recommend a Lillifer, but I do know that for some people, like the nudity, even though they're like kind of demon looking beings, that might make some people hesitate. They might not want this kind of deck, but Lillifer works really well in my opinion, so highly do recommend this one. And another standout of the year, but also a deck I used a lot, was the Goblins and Gardens Tarot. This I also used around that same time as Tarot Echoes, Lillifer. This would have been March, April, May-ish even. I think I used a bit of this in May. Goblins and Gardens. I think I got this last year, but it was the very end of the year. It might have been November or December. So I decided I was going to wait to use this deck in, you know, the springtime of year, because it gave me spring vibes. By the way, Lillifer, sorry, I forgot to mention this. Lillifer Tarot is by Marion Costentin, but I heard she doesn't go by Costentin anymore. She might go by her maiden name now. I'm not 100%. Don't quote me on that. But that's an indie. So is Tarot of Echoes, was Anaturian. This deck says here, Goblins and Gardens is created by Jonathan Sasha, maybe? I hope I said that right. And this deck is inspired by Dungeons and Dragons, but specifically the old artwork from Dungeons and Dragons from the heyday. These are the crazy but amazing backs. This deck, just like Forager's Daughter, is also a glossy linen, but it is so good and so flexible. See how like flexible this one is? Oh my goodness. But it also has this like nice edging, gold edging. And this deck, I love this deck. It is so quirky, so fun. It's such a different take on a collage deck. That's probably why I like it so much. It takes nature-y old photographs from like the 70s and combines it with D&D artwork that would have been also from around the 70s, 80s in time. Probably, I'm assuming 3E or maybe even before that, like 1E or something. I don't remember. But I love it. It is so funny and it goes with so many things. This also paired well with the Spread Crafters, I have to say. And I just really, really liked this one. And I had a good time. And I just didn't want to stop reading with it, to be honest. This also was a deck that let me feel my feelings, but in a softer way. It let me cry. It let me be kind to myself afterwards. So it's kind of funny. Like the Lillifer let me feel angry. But this deck made me cry it out and feel calm after. It was just such a good deck. Maybe in that way you can almost say like a hug deck, I guess. But I really loved it. Goblins and Gardens. I am impressed. Do want to use it again next year. When did I say I was going to in my schedule here? I don't remember now. But we're going to move on. After Goblins and Gardens, there were some other decks. Of course, I was still using decks. Oh, but I think around this time, I started using this a lot. Spark and Pen Tarot. I got this at the very beginning of 2024. Spark and Pen. This was out of print for a very long time, and this year came back into print. But this deck is fantastic. This is by far the biggest standout out of this whole year. This was the biggest standout deck, and this was definitely also one of my most used decks. Besides the Cerner Farber, I was always pulling for this one. These are the amazing, wonderfully beautiful backs. This deck is also linen. Oh, this was my card of November. This is the light card. I consider it the light card, but it doesn't say. In its little pamphlet thingy, these cards are not named. There's this one and another one, but I call this one the light card. The other one is the dark. And this deck is fantastic. If you are someone who loves color, this is the deck for you. Hands down, the best. As you might see as I flip through this deck does have more nudity, which if you're like me, normally that might bother you, but for some reason for me, it didn't bother me with this deck. I liked it a lot. I guess it's because it seemed okay-ish enough. Oh, this Fool is fantastic. Oh, but this card always makes me cry. I have to move. That's the one card I don't like. It's very triggering, like for pets and stuff. That is the one card that makes me very sad. But otherwise, fantastic deck. Oh, this is the dark card. I love it. I used it a lot this past year. It just did its job. It knew what it wanted. I had a lot of emotional and impactful readings with this one. It wanted to read really well for me and just did immediately from the start. Had a very impactful time with this one. And yeah, I don't know what else I can say. This was so good. I've talked about this so much this year. You guys are probably tired of it, but I do recommend it if you have your eye on it. You can find us on Etsy. I don't remember if it's by... I don't know if she's always called us now, but it was always the writer. So, yeah. Spark and Pen. But around this same time, I was using Spark and Pen a lot, which I feel like was a lot of May, June. I also got this deck, which I didn't use a crazy ton, but I'm putting this as a standout because of what it is. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. I used this in July. This is the Asphodelen Mythos Tarot. It just says Mythos Tarot. It's the first edition. I guess there's going to be a second edition soon. I don't know. This is a Greek mythology deck. It's, as it says here, it focuses a lot on the tale of Persephone. But at the same time, I would also argue that's not just a Persephone deck. Even though, as you can see here, it has... a lot of Persephone imagery. It has the pomegranates. This is not just a Persephone deck, as I'm going to show, because it also does a great balance, in my opinion, of showing other Greek myths, which is why this is the only Greek myth deck I think I ever need, personally. This is the Three of Coins. As you can see, these are all the gods, right? You have Zeus, you have Poseidon, and you have Hades, all mixed in here, right? More Hades. But then you have other figures like this. See, so it's not just, and the guidebook tells you who these people are, if you don't know. But this is not, see, Atalanta, you know, it's not just Persephone. Even though this is a deck that focuses on that in the majors more so. This deck is not just Persephone. It features a lot of other Greek figures, the Fates. Oh, I don't know who is screaming outside. I am so sorry. You know what? Okay, give me 1 second. I'm going to pause and close my window. Okay, sorry about that. I had to close the window. Someone was like starting to scream outside. I don't know what the hell is going on. Anyways, this deck just has such beautiful artwork. Explained like the muses here, right? Has so many interesting figures from Greek myth, even Circe, you know, Cerberus. I'm pretty sure this is Nike, right? I don't know. I don't want to look in the guidebook right now. But this is a beautiful one. I really like this for Greek mythology Pandora's box or jar, you know. Such a great deck. And so for that reason, it's a standout because I finally found a Greek mythology deck for me. I will be using this more next year. Probably, I think in March is what I put. I don't know. But this is a good one. Very, very, very good one. Okay. But moving on from Asphodelen. What's another deck? Oh, actually, I only have 2 more decks to show you guys. So this video, no, 3. Oh God. We'll go into this one next. Also in July, I was using this deck a lot. This is the Zodiac Tarot. And you guys might find this funny, of course, because when I first got this deck, I expressed not being very happy with this. Why? Because I originally got this mini version of the Zodiac Tarot because I thought I was being smart and cheeky and avoiding nasty gloss cardstock like this. Because original deck I knew had this cardstock. I didn't think fucking US Games, right, for mass market would do this fingerprint-inducing glossy cardstock for a small version of a deck, right? A tin deck. But they did, and I was very upsetty spaghetti at first. I know it's very like, come on, calm down kind of thing, but I am autistic and I have sensory issues related to gloss, which is why I don't usually like I said earlier with the other glossy linen decks, why I don't usually like glossy cardstock in general. This deck, why is this a standout? Despite it being this nasty gloss, I found myself becoming very attached to this deck. Weirdly, I don't know why. I kept wanting to use this a lot, so I kind of used it a bit in July, August. I used it a lot even, which was a big surprise for me. Maybe because it was a tin deck and it was just, you know, easy to carry around or something. I almost said it's kind of like Stockholm Syndrome or something. It's like you feel like you're a prisoner of this deck, but at the same time, you grew bonded together. I don't know. I don't know what it was. It is not also my usual style in some respects, but I don't know what it was. I ended up really liking this deck. And so I have to mention it. It was a standout for the fact that it made me have to suck it up about glossy cardstock because, oh man. You guys tell, like, I touch it and you can just see fingerprints all over the back. I hate it. But at the same time, I like this deck. I don't know. I like it now. So, Zodiac Tarot. But the last 2 I want to talk about came in at the very end of the year, but they are standouts for different reasons. The first one here is Nova Witch Tarot, which is also a mass market. Blue Angel, I think, produces this one, but you can get it on both Llewellyn's website and US Games website. I don't know how the hell that works, but is what it is. Nova Witch Tarot is a standout. This deck is massive, by the way. I have small hands, and this deck is bigger in my hand. So, yeah. It's a standout because it managed somehow, just like I think the Zodiac Tarot was starting to do this already, but it started making me aware of styles of decks that I wouldn't originally have written off because this is very modern looking. Like the people in here look very modern looking. And I would have originally written that off because I'm not somebody who has a lot of modern decks in general. I'm just not. I'm very fantastical in my decks. But I like this deck because it feels modern, but at the same time, it still kind of feels fantastical. The color style is different. It's mostly black and white. Well, not mostly. It's black and white a lot, but it also has like pops of other colors. It just challenged a lot of what I thought I would like in a tarot deck. Also the size, by the way, because this deck is not 100% great to shuffle. It really isn't. It's kind of a pain in the butt because I have small hands again, and this deck is like bigger in my hands, longer in my hands, you know, it's a lot. But at the same time, this became a standout because it challenged, right? It challenged my tarot notions, what decks I thought I would get. And so it had to be mentioned, right? Nova Witch. I haven't really looked 100% in the guidebook, but as you can see, it has some keywords, a little bit of paragraph, and in a reading, like how it could change. It has some spreads, it looks like. I just was mostly interested in the aesthetic, and I kept thinking about this deck, and I kept saying, no, I'm not going to get it. But then I kept seeing it everywhere, and I ended up getting it. So, and I even gave it its own little bag because I did not want to deal with, its box. So that's the Nova Witch. And finally, the last standout of this year, or most used in some ways, you can say, is this deck. This is the Every Little Thing You Do Is Magic Tarot. It also has this guidebook that you have to buy separately, which basically takes all the information in the guidebook, like this part and this part are in the guidebook anyways, like the guidebook that it comes with. But in this journal, it adds like prompts and more background information and other things into it. And I use this deck for Tarot Advent. This is why this was a standout. Because I got this deck very late, like November-ish, I think, or late October. I don't know. It was somewhere in that period. And I mostly use this for Tarot Advent. I haven't done any other readings with this deck, but it's somehow a standout. Can you believe? Because I use this deck for Tarot Advent, and it was so good. So good. As you can see, this is an animal collage deck. Very different. This deck is also very different because even in the guidebook or in the journal, every card in this deck gets a song, a scent, and what's it called? A song, scent, and a stone that it's tied to. And it's just so good. I don't know. I became very bonded with this deck through doing Tarot Advent, through journaling, through listening to all the songs. It's a good one. And I plan to use this actually to do readings next year. I'm putting it for May, though. I don't know why. It just feels like a very May time of year, maybe. But it's also very watery and blues, so I don't know. But I'm at least going to try to use it in May. This deck, as you can see, is also a little on the wider side. It's more, which is, again, challenging when you have smaller hands. So it does stretch me a little, but I can just manage to shuffle it. It's basically, what's it called? It's basically oracle size, though. It's like an oracle size tarot deck, which isn't always my cup of tea, but I just like how unique this deck is. And because it was such a standout, so different, and had such a unique experience with journaling and listening to the music that's paired with this deck, this had to be a top used deck and a standout of the year, so kind of a bit of both. But anyways, if you were watching this long, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed seeing what decks I appreciated the most, some of my plans, some of my Stalker cards, and I will see you guys, I guess, next time going into the new year. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. So 2025, here we come. I will see you guys all again next time. Bye.